Peace and power, family. Welcome back to Unto Read with B, Quotes to Live By, where we're talking about All About Love by Bell Hooks. And we are on chapter 2, Justice, which is one of my favorite chapters because as a former teacher and youth organizer, this chapter really emphasizes the lack of agency and respect, which ultimately leads to the lack of love that we give children. All right, this chapter is called Childhood Love Lessons, and she starts off with a quote by Judith Voice about parents, where she says, "We may find it hard to be human without the sustenance of this first attachment," right? If you don't get what you need from your parents, your whole life is fucked up. It's the reality, right? And she names that and goes in to point out different opportunities and examples of how us as adults and parents belittle children, take away their rights, take away their agency, and leave them without love, ultimately making it hard for them to love as adults in the future. So the first quote I want to talk about is one where she says, "The notion that love is about getting what one wants makes it difficult for children to acquire a deeper emotional understanding," right? When we think about love, we think about, oh, my mama loved me because she gave me this, she did this for me, and when I wanted to go there, she said yes. And those are the ideas and examples that we pull up when we think about our parental love, but that's not what love is. Love is not always getting what you want, and her naming that out the gate in the beginning makes it really easy for us to see how some of the love that we received as children might not have been helpful to the love that we're trying to create now as adults. She goes on to say that the children are the true victims of intimate terrorism and that they have no collective voice and no rights. And this is what I was talking about earlier. She names the fact that everybody has somebody speaking for them. Everybody has somebody representing for them. But children have to listen to adults. They have to go with what you say because you're older and you're the parent, when you don't even ask them, communicate with them, talk with them about what it is that they need in order to feel loved, in order to feel seen in a moment and an experience, right? And we think back to our own childhoods when we wanted to tell our parents something, or we tried to tell our parents something, and they cut us off because they knew best. You think I don't know, I was a child before, all these things, but we're still not able to exercise our agency, so we don't get the practice. So when we get to be adults, we don't know how to ask for what we want and name our things because we have those remembrances and those memories from the interactions we had with our parents, our first loves, right? Another quote that I want to talk about was, she says, "As absolute rulers, parents can usually decide without any intervention what is best for their children." And this is exactly what I was just naming. Like, we come up with the end all be all solutions without talking to kids. As a teacher, I was the boss, okay? What I say goes because I need order in my classroom, right? But I also had to stop and think and talk with my children about why things had to be done and why we needed to move in a certain way and why we needed order so that they could actually learn and feel like they were a part of the process. This is not something that happened in my household growing up. My mama made the rules and we followed them. Okay. And when I think about dating now, I think about how society has made the rules, and I'm basically trying to follow them, but I ain't really following them. But the reality is, when you don't follow the rules that society puts into place, you feel weird and awkward, and dating is harder. Another quote that I want to name is around her talking about her father and the relationships that they had growing up, right? She said, "Abuse and neglect negate love." When her father used to abuse their power, she said, "We cease to protest his violation of our boundaries and his ignoring our sense of being individuals with needs, demands, and rights of our own." when he abused them, when he neglected them, every time that they said something or tried to say something, they just stopped complaining about it. You just went along with it. And we see the same things in relationships now, right? It was always, or it is always where it's like, oh, my partner does this and I don't like it, but I'm not gonna complain about it because when I said something, nothing changed and da 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 da. Instead of actually communicating and trying to work things out, we are just going along with it so that we can have some peace when we really don't even have peace because we have inner turmoil. You're not happy. You sitting over there mad and you can't name why you're mad because in your childhood you weren't listened to, so you feel like you won't be listened to in your relationships. It's crazy the connections of your first relationship, which is your relationship with your parents, and the future relationship dynamics, fam. It's so crazy, and this book does a great job at laying it out, especially this chapter. It says, studies show that males and females who are violently humiliated and abused repeatedly with no caring intervention are likely to be dysfunctional and will be predisposed to abuse others violently. This reminds me of the J. Cole song where he says, where he's talking about people who live in abusive households end up abusing the people that they love. It's real. It's cycles. It's like generational curses. It's happening over and over, and we don't know how to break it because we don't know how to name it. We don't recognize that we are conditioned literally through our experiences as children to act the way that we do in our relationships. We're playing the roles that we have seen in the past. And if you were predisposition, which means that you experienced before abuse in your household, you experience neglect, you experience not being able to identify as an individual who has needs, you're not going to be able to do that in your relationships without acknowledging that first, without naming like, oh shit, I don't say what I need, I don't ask for support, I don't do, I'm not clear with what I want, right? I just go along with the flow, and until you know that, you can't change it. All right, another this is the one. She says, being hurt by parenting adults rarely alters a child's desire to love and be loved by them. The desire to be loved by uncaring parents persists even when there is a clear acceptance of the reality that this love will never be forthcoming. Even if you know they ain't shit, you still sticking along, you still dragging along, you still keeping up with it because you want that love. You want, or you think it's love that you get from them when they're being nice, but that abuse and neglect undermines any type of affection that they could ever give, right? But you stay in it, you push through, you fight through it because you're like, no, it's love and they love me, and one day they're gonna give me the love that I want, only hurting yourself in the end. And why? Because of interactions that we had as children. Belle put it on the paper, y'all. She made it plain and clear. She laid it out, okay? She let us know that you have to unpack what you went through as a child, what relationships looked like to you growing up, what you watched on TV around relationships growing up, right? To understand your idea, your framing, your perspective around relationships. And then you got to look at how you've been showing up in past relationships. If you're in a relationship now, how are you showing up in your relationship? Is it the same way you saw in the past? Is it a new way? Is it something that you've seen from outside of yourself but doesn't feel really comfortable and true to you? You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to reflect. You have to unpack. You have to get it done in order for it to really come through and you to really be successful in your relationships. Let me see. This is another quote that says, the love I learned about was bound by duty and obligation. And this is another key point because that goes back to what I was just talking about around just doing the thing because you think it's right. You feel like it's your duty, right? Because you the girlfriend or the boyfriend, you gotta stick it out. You gotta be there for them when they're going through their shit. No, if you name that shit ain't working for you and that you need changes and you don't see changes, name that shit one more time, because I'm a firm believer in, giving somebody another chance. But then make it very clear that if this don't change, you're going to have to do what's right for you. Mental health is important. You do not need to be sticking around in a relationship that's not going to satisfy your needs. But you also have to name your needs in order to even expect or in order for a person to even satisfy them. If I don't know what you want, if you don't tell me what you need, right, I can't satisfy that need. But you do not need to stick around out of duty and obligation, right? That's some things that I was just talking to one of my friends earlier around why relationships aren't lasting as long now as like they did in the past. Our grandparents and great aunts and all of them in the past, they really believed in that duty as, spouse, right? It's my duty as the wife to do these things. It's the duty as the mother to do these things. When they were not satisfying their own needs, they were suffering deep pain and trauma, and it's been passed down. How do we know? Because we fucking going through the same shit. We dealing with it ourselves now. We got the remnants of what they went through, right? So because of that, we see clearly that duty and obligation is not enough. It's not enough. And we cannot move strictly off of duty and obligation. All right, let me see if we can get one more good quote out of here before we move on. All right, this is in the end of the chapter. It says, "Love is as love does, and it is our responsibility to give children love." And I think that that is a great way to end, because it's all about love as an action. It's all about what you do, fam. You can say anything, you can give a child anything, but if you are not moving in the right way and giving them justice, right? Being fair and listening to their needs and making sure that they have space to show up as themselves, you're not setting yourself up or that child up for love. And when I say yourself, I mean, if you're not giving yourself the space to name your needs in your relationship, if you're not giving yourself the space to speak up and to be able to act out in the way that you think your love needs to be shown, you're doing yourself an injustice, and you're not going to feel love, self-love, or be able to give it to somebody else. So that is that for today. Y'all be blessed. Love y'all, and see y'all next time.